Oh, Shalom Chavirim. It's Wednesday night. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Time here in D.C. And I'm Rabbi Block, and we're here live again. I chose for my topic tonight, Not Broken, Exquisitely Designed. Now, I always start with the weather or the traffic or something to give everybody time to log on and begin my 8 o'clock live. And that's why this beginning always is a little hither and thither and a little bit strange. So please, those of you who are joining immediately, you know to bear with me that we're waiting for other people to join us. And just as a reminder, the questions on the screen are in white. And I made the mistake tonight of wearing a shirt that's both white and black. But I am wearing a black tee, so I'm going to take off my shirt so I can read the white questions as they appear on the screen. And I also almost always begin by asking anyone that would want to be a co-host or want to join me, email me, rabbiblock@hotmail.com, and I'm giving you a definite yes. You will co-host with me next Wednesday night. We can decide on a topic together. We can decide on how to interact together, since there'll be two of us on the screen, or 3 or 4 of us. A panel would be fine. So far, for the last 10, 15, 20 years, not a single person has asked to co-host with me. Many of you say you would like to join live or join, but that's not a good idea. That's not how we're going to have a conversation. So for those of you that are asking to be invited, the answer is yes. Co-host with me next Wednesday. So why did I pick Not Broken, Exquisitely Designed? I hear very often that the government is broken, the VA is broken, the Department of Education is broken, churches are broken, religion is broken. I hear over and over again that something's broken. Chavirim, nothing is broken. Rather, systems have been exquisitely designed with a certain goal in mind, to carry out a certain function, to do something specific. There's nothing broken. Broken would mean that the institution or system wasn't carrying out what it was designed to do. Most of our government functions and educational functions were designed to discourage people from applying, discourage people from getting resources. The reality is, in the United States of America, we are not willing to put enough money in any particular program to make it successful. We put enough in, we label it, but then we have to figure out a way to exclude people. Educational systems are a beautiful example. Not on a federal level, not on a national level, not on a state level, but on a county local level. School boards have programs for students who need extra help, who need special, who can't sit down in a classroom or have a disability that doesn't allow them to sit or doesn't allow them to move. For whatever it may be, there are students in our system that can't sit in a classroom with 30 other students and learn at whatever level we would like them to learn. Just as an aside, most of us can't sit in a room with 30 other students and learn anything. That's a ridiculous model to start with, but that's the model. Okay. So, we have a program to help students who need, and we call it special education. They need something outside the regular classroom. The problem is, with the school system, there's not enough money for every student to be accommodated. There just isn't. And so the system is exquisitely designed to make sure that we don't overload the system. There is an incredible amount of paperwork. There are tests, there are examples, you have to see this person, that person, you have to go through this, and a year passes. The system is exquisitely designed so that not everyone who's entitled to the special educational services can get those services. So stop saying something's broken. I need money, Rabbi, please help. Yeah. In a perfect world, you wouldn't be asking that question. We have enough resources. It's just distribution. So going back to education, we've created a system, not federal, not national, local school boards, so that it's not, and the same applies with exceptional students. Students who would benefit from what we call a gifted and talented program, that would accelerate a program. We have to figure out a way to exclude some of these exceptional students because the system can't afford to support all of them. Nothing's broken. The same thing applies to the VA. We have to figure out a way not to provide services for all our veterans. Agent Orange is a perfect example. Deny, deny, deny. Then all kinds of obstacles to get benefits. Then finally the VA saying, yeah, but the VA knew from the beginning that Agent Orange was damaging our own troops. We also know that burning human excrement with kerosene and gasoline, the fumes, were hurting our soldiers. And again, we deny, 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 and then exclude, then create barriers, and then finally admit people. When all along, we knew that our veterans were entitled to compensation and for support. We knew this all along. The system is not broken. We need to look at each other and make a decision and say, we're going to stop creating systems that are designed to prevent. Now, people do abuse the system. It's granted. There aren't 1 million people who are dead getting Social Security. It's just not true. However, there are people scamming the system. There are people who a relative died and they figured out. That's true. These things are happening. But to wholesale say that it's categorical, that it's millions and billions of dollars, that it's thousands of people who are scamming us with SNAP, with food stamps, with disability insurance, that's an absurdity because the statistics don't bear out that there's billions and millions of people. The answer is yes, there are people. And so, rather than wholesale excluding, closing agencies, we really should set up a group, the same group that's doing it, by the way, could figure out a screening process. The same group of people that's wholesale firing people and then having to rehire them because we lost the talent we needed in government. We lost air traffic controllers. Then we tried to rehire them. Why did we fire them in the first place? The approach is not right. The idea is correct. And so there are people that abuse the system. Okay, let's use this group to create a way to screen, to figure out who is abusing the system, who is staying on the rolls when they shouldn't be, who could work when they're collecting unemployment. That's a more reasonable solution than categorically dumping everybody. Just an unreasonable way it doesn't work. So park that away, please. Nothing's broken. We exquisitely design, and religion does the same way. Who's going to heaven? Oh, Rabbi Block is not going to heaven because he does not accept Jesus as the Christ. I know he was a great person. He prevented many veterans from committing suicide. He brought many veterans to the Christ and saved their souls. Rabbi Block did a great job as a chaplain for 40 years. He really did. It's too bad he's going to hell because he doesn't accept Jesus as the Christ. There you go again. Exquisitely designed to exclude somebody. And it's not supported. My house has many mansions. And I'm not a Christian. Oh. So, this idea of exquisitely designed to exclude, not just for government, we see it in families. We see it in somehow where we treat our brothers and sisters. We create criteria that they can't fulfill. So they become excluded. And then Rabbi, what made you decide? Oh, neat question. What made me decide to be a rabbi? Go to my YouTube channel, The Rabbi and I. There is an episode 2 or 3 years ago called The Jesuit Rabbi. It's my autobiography. It's a story of how I became a rabbi, how I heard God's voice, how I heard my Christian colleagues talk of the call. And in Judaism, we don't use that same expression. However, it's a valid question, is what did I hear, what did I see? So please, YouTube, The Rabbi and I, or the podcast, The Rabbi and I, and look for the podcast called The Jesuit Rabbi. That's my autobiography. And I'm always asked about Palestine, and I always give the same answer. I believe we need 2 states that recognizes the right of each state to exist without terrorist organizations running them and without a government that wants to expand the land. We need an Israel, we need a Palestine in a space where they recognize each other and aren't attempting to either wipe each other out or take over each other's countries. So that's my answer. And so we've talked about this before. Oh, my YouTube channel, The Rabbi and I. Okay, the latest episode, which was from 10 days ago, is called President Trump's Plans for Gaza. He should read the Quran first. 25,000 views. And I want to thank you, my TikTok viewers, for the material that went into that YouTube and podcast. Because a couple of weeks ago, I quoted from the Quran about cooperation, about how Muhammad taught that Jews should have a land, how Jews should be treated. And many of you sent me verses and from both the Quran and the Hadith saying how Jews are monkeys, Jews should be killed, we should destroy Jews, they shouldn't have a land. So I took every quote that you quoted. I listened to you. I took every quote and I started researching them. I then created a YouTube and podcast where I presented every single one of your quotes that says Islam is a religion of hate, of destruction. It should kill, it destroy, it should rape, it should do all these things. I took what you said. 25,000 views. Almost everyone pointed out that that's not Islam. That they didn't agree with it. And they said, we don't want to teach that Islam is a religion of hate and destruction, because it isn't. You picked verses that they told me. You picked verses out of context. You picked sections of verses for manipulative purposes and for your ends. So please, go to my YouTube channel, The Rabbi and I, Look at the latest episode, 25,000 views. And what I did, I presented, when people said to me, oh, you didn't read the rest of the Quran, or you have to read this. I took it, I researched it, and I said, it appears, according to what I've found, according to the teachings of Islam, this is not consistent with Islam. It's very selective and very destructive. And guess what? 25,000 people agreed with me. Wow. How strange. So I would suggest, before you start passing judgment, before you start casting aspersions and throwing things, do a little bit more looking into the actual teachings of Islam. One can grab on to a statement in the Talmud. One can grab on to a statement in the Midrash and say, see, Jews don't like non-Jews. That's not reflective of Judaism. That was a very selective piece, and you have to look at the context of who brought it up and why did they say it. Do I have to ask you a question? Is it okay? Is it okay? It's a cult blame. Yeah. I'm not thrilled with Netanyahu, with the cabinet, with the government. I do not agree with Israeli politics, but I'm not Israeli. I'm an American citizen. And Israel does not represent Judaism. It doesn't. It's a government, it's a country. And I don't agree with the policies. I don't agree with what's going on in the West Bank. I don't agree with expansion. I don't think Israel needs to expand beyond the borders. That's why I believe there's room for Palestine. And again, each country recognizing the legitimate right of the other country to exist and not existing to destroy the other country. And then things can prosper. And they would prosper. And when people bring up Zionism, you have to understand that there's something called political Zionism, but that's not the sum total of the idea. I'm a spiritual, cultural Zionist. I'm not a religious Zionist. I'm not a political Zionist. Unfortunately, spiritual and social Zionism is very low on the totem pole. And it's not well received because we believe in the coming of the Messiah. We believe that God has a plan for all of us. We believe that everyone will be redeemed. And Muhammad taught that, and that's one of the quotes that you'll hear if you look at that YouTube, that anyone who follows their religion and accepts the truth, not just Islam, but again, I was very careful to research every quote that you gave me. So it's not my views. It was the views of the scholars in Islam, not fringe groups, not people, conspiracy theorists, not people that want to incite hate. That's not where I went. I went to the scholars in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, in the Emirates. So please, view and listen. But I want to thank those of you out there who threw them up to me as if it was some, I don't know what, as if I should be killed or destroyed, or Islam has an excuse for raping women and strangling children. That's the way you presented it to me. However, I listened to you, and I did a whole YouTube on it. And we need to respect back. But the very fact that some people don't respect Jews doesn't mean I should attack Roman Catholics. I know Roman Catholics don't respect Jews, but you want me to say, oh, that's a reason for me to disrespect. No. And I get that all the time. People say, well, Israel doesn't respect Muslims. You don't, as if that justifies their not respecting Jews. No, that doesn't work that way. Because I know Episcopalians that don't respect Jews. I know Episcopalians who don't respect Roman Catholics. I know many, many Christians who claim that Roman Catholics aren't Christian. I find that very bizarre. Roman Catholics are Christians. Very bizarre. So we have to step away from this excuse business. But as my topic, many institutions are exquisitely designed to exclude Roman Catholics, to exclude Baptists, to exclude Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox. And when someone says, do I believe in Jesus and the Blessed Virgin Mary, you have to reframe what you mean by believe, okay? Because it's not a trick question, it's a hard question to answer. I do not accept Jesus as the Christ. I'm waiting for the Messiah, which in Christian terms would be the second coming. Now, Christians say the second coming will be Jesus. I say, I don't know who it is, but whoever it is, I'll recognize that person when it happens. I think that's pretty open. The goal is to find a way for each of us to attain the one. Now, whether we use the word God, Allah, Jehovah, Yahweh, Adonai, Hashem. There are lots of terms. I have a porch. I have a veranda. I have a lanai. It's all the same. Different words describing the same physical object, place, thing. And so all religions use different words to describe a power outside ourselves. And so when someone says, do you believe, we need to stop and say, well, what is it you're asking? And usury that's a neat history in terms of lending money at interest. You know, when I was growing up, the family would have killed, well, they did. The family would have loved to charge half of what your Visa card is charging you. What, 20, 30% a year? My family couldn't get that on the street. We were talking about 5 or 6%. 10 was considered exorbitant. Now, legally, on your credit card, 20, 30, 40% a year, that's usury. So don't point to Jews or Christians. The banks are doing it legally. Okay? So this idea of money lending at interest, you can't have commerce without lending money, because money's a commodity. It's like buying a house or a car. None of us could save, no. All except the 10% at the top. The 90% of us could not afford a house or a car without borrowing the money. We borrow the money, we pay some interest back. It's a commodity, and that's the only way you can have commerce. The problem being that legally, banks and corporations, with the permission of again, exquisitely designed, the system is exquisitely designed to be able to take advantage of those of us who need money at rates that are off the charts. No, I'm not saying I'm a Zionist. I'm not saying I'm against Zionism. I'm against political Zionism. Please, make that distinction. Please. Okay? A spiritual, cultural homeland is very different from a political entity. Look at Ukraine. That's a political entity fighting for its survival. Israel is a political entity fighting for its survival. And don't start using Zionism and say you're not anti-Semitic because you're anti-Zionist. No, that's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Don't play that game. That's very dishonest. No, join with me and say you don't agree with Israeli politics. You don't agree with what the government is doing, which is different. It's not about religion. It's about politics. And if I pause, I'm reading the script. And this will not come to an end unless Arab nationalism is separated from political ideation and political causes. And we look at each other and say, people need a safe place to live. Let's pull the politics out and stop using it to get votes, to expand territory, to make something bigger. But I'm not in that position to be able to do that. But I can tell you that's what I believe. Okay. So please, my YouTube channel, the last 5 or 6, and my podcast, last 5 or 6, answer all the questions you are asking. Now, we also can go back to ancient text, and we can start singing, "This land is my land. Get off my land. Go find your own land, 'cause God gave this land to me." Now, we can all sing that. However, where will that lead? What will be the outcome? So let's stop singing, "This land is my land. Get off my land. Go find your own land, 'cause God gave this land to me, not to you." Let's stop singing that and take a look. Israel is a country. It's going to be around. They're a group of displaced people, Palestinians, and the UN formed the country of Palestine. That should exist. Okay, let's deal with what is and not try to justify hurting other people by bringing back who had their toe here first, or who had claim to it, or any of the ors, because it just leads to more death and destruction. Let's start with what is, look at each other and say, safe, protected, recognizing each has a right to exist. And just because one government or another doesn't agree with that, doesn't mean we're going to stop doing it. And it doesn't mean that all Muslims are bad. If I use the quotes you threw at me, which is what led to my YouTube, I used your quotes, I would conclude that Muslims are bloodthirsty killers and want to rape and kill babies. I don't believe that. I looked at the verses you sent to me, and they don't say that. And I did a YouTube on that. And now I have 25,000 people who agree with me. So let's stop that. And let's take a look at what is and not what was or who was here first. And let's say, how do we sort this out now? And it'll be all in our best interest. Be a much better place for all of us. Because our resources could be put into developing cures for diseases. It could be put into helping the unemployed, helping people who are homeless. The money could be taken out of defense and put into something else. Okay? Thank you for comparing me to Tevye in Fiddler. That's a really nice compliment. I like that. I'm going to have to use that. I like to think of myself as Tevye. Well, that's my message. My YouTube is The Rabbi and I. And my email is rabbiblock@hotmail.com. And my podcast is The Rabbi and I. And I would be remiss if I didn't promote my book, How to Be Jewish in 30 Seconds. The cartoons are worth the price of the book alone. Joe Sutliff is a great cartoonist. So even if you don't want to read The Wisdom of Rabbi Block,